I was fixing a broken kitchen drawer when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud or urgent. Just steady. 3 dull thuds against the door like fate tapping me on the shoulder. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked over, already annoyed. When I pulled the door open, my daughter, Eliza, stood there, holding her phone with both hands, her eyes gleaming in a way I couldn't read. "Dad," she said, not even stepping inside. "You should sit down." It was cold outside. Mid-March winds slicing through the street like invisible knives. But I stood there dumbly, shivering slightly, staring at her. "Dad," she repeated. "It's Mom. She's leaving. For Uncle Kyle." Uncle Kyle. The words didn't fit in my head. Not the man who once babysat Eliza when Rachel and I were working late. Not the guy who helped me build our back porch 2 summers ago. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Instead, I just nodded like some idiot who didn't understand English anymore. "She says it's destiny," Eliza whispered, looking away. "She says it's been meant to be all along." The world around me blurred. The front yard. The street lamp buzzing overhead. The cold air. All of it twisted into something unreal, something wrong. I stumbled back inside and sat at the kitchen table, the broken drawer still dangling off its hinges like a metaphor for my marriage. Eliza followed me in but kept her distance like I might explode. Maybe I would have, if I weren't so numb. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? At some point, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm happy now. Kyle is my future. Please accept it." I read it 4 times, each word slicing deeper, each smiley face emoji a tiny stab straight into my chest. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to ask why, but instead, I sat there, shoulders sagging, feeling like the biggest fool alive. 15 years. 15 years of late nights, birthdays, anniversaries, hospital visits, arguments, laughter, inside jokes, all tossed away like garbage. And somehow, even worse than Rachel's betrayal was Eliza's soft, apologetic voice telling me, "It's destiny, Dad. You have to let her go." I didn't know it then, but that night wasn't the bottom. It was just the start of a fall so deep I wouldn't recognize myself when I finally hit the ground. The next morning, I woke up on the living room couch, still in the same jeans and t-shirt, with a dull ache pounding behind my eyes. I hadn't meant to fall asleep. I guess my body just gave up somewhere between rereading Rachel's message and replaying every mistake I'd ever made. The house was eerily silent. Too silent. I almost expected Eliza to come downstairs and pretend everything was normal, but instead, I found a sticky note on the fridge. "Staying at Mom's new place tonight. She wants me to get used to it." Just like that. No, I'm sorry. No hesitation. My daughter, my little girl, was switching sides without a fight. I stared at the note for a long time before crumpling it up and throwing it into the sink. Water dripped from the faucet in irregular beats, like some cruel countdown to the end of the life I thought I had. Every corner of the house felt like it was suffocating me, the half-folded laundry in the basket, the pictures on the wall of smiling vacations, the smell of coffee lingering from a machine I didn't even want to touch. By noon, my phone rang. Rachel. I shouldn't have answered. But some part of me, still clinging stupidly to the past, picked up. Her voice was bright. Sickeningly bright. "Hey, look, I just wanted to let you know that Kyle and I are moving into the lake house. It makes more sense now. Fresh start, you know? Fresh start." Like she was redecorating a living room, not bulldozing 15 years of marriage into the ground. She kept talking, not even pausing to see if I was breathing on the other end. Plans about splitting assets amicably, promises that this doesn't have to be messy, reminders that we're still family because of Eliza. Every word felt like sandpaper dragging across my nerves. When she finally stopped to breathe, I said the only thing that came to mind. "Just tell me when and where to sign." There was a beat of silence. Maybe she expected me to beg. Maybe she wanted me to sob and demand she come back. But I didn't. I just sat there, voice flat, heart cracked, mind already 1,000 miles away from her. Rachel recovered quickly. Good. Good. "I'm glad you're being mature about this," she chirped. "This is going to be better for everyone. You'll see. Maybe you can find someone new too. Someone more compatible." Compatible. Like I was an outdated phone charger she was discarding. After we hung up, I sat back and stared at the ceiling, realizing something bone-deep and terrifying. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an erasure. Rachel wasn't grieving the marriage. She was acting like it had been a 15-year detour she regretted taking. And Eliza, my own daughter, was already packing up her memories to fit the new narrative. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling the weight of 15 years settle over me like wet cement. At that moment, I made a quiet vow to myself. I wouldn't fight her. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't even try to win. No, I would give her exactly what she wanted, but not in the way she expected. And when the time came, Rachel would realize the price of her freedom was far higher than she ever imagined. The next few days blurred into a fog of legal paperwork, shallow breathing, and awkward silences. Every phone call from my lawyer felt like a confirmation of my own failure. Every signature, every document I initialed, was a quiet, humiliating admission that I had no fight left in me. Rachel didn't even have the decency to show up for the meetings. She sent Kyle instead. Kyle, wearing a smug grin and cologne strong enough to punch you in the face. He acted like he was doing me a favor, like this was all just some friendly transfer of property between two reasonable adults. I wanted to slam his face into the nearest wall. Instead, I nodded, said, "Thank you," and signed my life away with hands that barely shook. The lake house, the savings account, the second car, even the stupid old kayak we bought together on a whim during our 3rd year of marriage. She could have it all. I didn't want any of it. I didn't want reminders of a life that clearly meant nothing to her. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. It was small, drafty, and smelled faintly of the last tenant's cooking disasters. But it was mine. Mine in the way that a wounded animal claims a hollow log in the woods, not because it's beautiful, but because it's the only shelter left. The first night I slept there, it rained so hard the gutters overflowed and the streetlights flickered like dying stars. I lay on the mattress on the floor, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the water pound against the windows. I should have felt free. That's what everyone said, that divorce meant freedom, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. Instead, I felt like a discarded book no one wanted to read anymore. Forgotten. Unimportant. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world was dark and my defenses were down, doubts crept in like cockroaches. Was I boring? Was I too soft? Too easy to replace? Was I the reason Rachel needed Kyle to feel alive again? Those thoughts burrowed deep, gnawing at me when I was too tired to fight back. I hated myself for still loving her in some broken, pathetic way. I hated that I checked my phone out of habit, half hoping for a message, half praying for silence. But I never texted her. I never called. I made myself invisible, like a ghost retreating from the world he no longer belonged to. Eliza visited once. She sat on the edge of the mattress, looking uncomfortable, clutching her backpack like it was a shield. "Mom's happy," she said, as if that made everything okay. "Good," I croaked, the word tasting like ashes in my mouth. She looked around the apartment, at the bare walls, the sagging blinds, the single chair in the corner, and I saw the pity in her eyes before she could hide it. It gutted me more than Rachel's betrayal ever could. When she left, she hugged me stiffly and whispered, "You'll find someone too, Dad. You deserve to be happy." The door clicked shut behind her, and I realized something brutal and final. I wasn't part of their new life. I wasn't even a supporting character anymore. I was a footnote. But what Rachel didn't know, what none of them knew, was that by giving her everything, I was setting a trap. A legal, silent, devastating trap that she had walked into with both feet, smiling the whole way. And soon, very soon, she would realize what real loss looked like. Court day came faster than I expected. It was one of those gray mornings where the sky looks like an old bedsheet, wrinkled, heavy, colorless. I barely recognized myself in the mirror before I left. There was a tightness around my eyes that hadn't been there months ago, and my once steady hand shook slightly as I buttoned my shirt. The courthouse was packed. Some people fighting over child custody, some over money, others just trying to hurt each other one last time. I sat alone on the hard wooden bench, waiting for my name to be called, feeling like an actor in a play where I didn't know my lines anymore. Rachel arrived 5 minutes late, sweeping into the hallway like she owned the building. She wore a pale blue dress, the one she used to wear to weddings, and heels that clicked aggressively on the floor. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked every bit the part of the wronged woman ready to move on with grace. Kyle trailed behind her, wearing a too-tight suit and an oily smirk. Rachel caught my eye and smiled. A confident, almost pitying smile, like she thought I was going to make a fool of myself. I didn't smile back. I just nodded politely, like two strangers passing on the street. Inside, though, my heart raced. Because today wasn't just about signing papers. Today was the day I pulled the rug out from under her. The judge called us in. We sat across from each other at a wide table, the air between us thick with everything we would never say. Rachel crossed her legs and leaned back like she was already planning where to celebrate afterward. The paperwork began. Assets, accounts, property. I agreed to everything. Calm, collected. I nodded when asked if I was sure. I initialed where I needed to. Rachel's lawyer beamed, thinking this was the easiest divorce he'd ever handled. And then came the last envelope. The one my lawyer had held back until the final moment. When the clerk opened it and slid the contents across the table to Rachel, her hand hovered for just a second too long before picking up the papers. I watched her read the first line, then the second, then the third. Her smile faltered. Her fingers tightened on the page. Her eyes darted up to me, confused, angry, scared, all at once. What is this? She hissed, her voice low but sharp. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem, Mrs. Kavanaugh? Mrs. Kavanaugh. She hadn't even bothered to change her last name yet. Rachel's voice cracked slightly as she spoke. This says I forfeit all claims to future spousal support? The room went still. She turned to her lawyer, who flipped through the papers, frowning deeper with every page. My lawyer, cool as ice, explained. Yes. In accordance with the prior agreements your client signed voluntarily during the initial asset discussions, she waived any claim to alimony in the event that cohabitation with a romantic partner occurred before finalization. Mr. Kavanaugh's private investigator provided evidence of such cohabitation, dated, photographed, witnessed. Rachel's face drained of color. Kyle shifted uncomfortably beside her. I just sat there, quiet, not gloating, not smiling. Just finished. Rachel had moved in with Kyle before the divorce was final. She'd been flaunting it, thinking I was too broken to notice, too weak to care. She thought she was winning. But by living with him, she had unknowingly activated a clause that voided any future claims she might have had. No alimony. No additional payouts. Nothing. She was walking away with exactly what she had in her hands, and not a penny more. The realization crashed over her visibly. I could see it happen in real time, the perfect facade cracking, the dream life slipping out of reach. I signed the last page without hesitation, dropped the pen, stood up, and without looking back, I walked out of that courtroom into the freezing afternoon air, breathing for what felt like the first time in months. Behind me, I heard Rachel's voice rising, not words, just a raw, furious sound of someone realizing too late that they'd lost everything they thought they had. But it wasn't my problem anymore. Not my mess. Not my burden. Not my destiny. I was done. After the court hearing, I wandered the city streets like a man who had just been erased. People passed me by, faces blurring into nothingness, their voices blending into a low, constant hum that I barely heard. I didn't have a destination. No home waiting. No family asking when I'd be back. Just an empty apartment with beige walls and a fridge that hummed louder than any conversation I'd had in weeks. I ended up sitting on a park bench, the kind with peeling green paint and rusted bolts, as the afternoon died around me. I watched kids run past, couples argue softly by the fountains, a man in a business suit throw breadcrumbs to a line of greedy pigeons. Life moved on. The world kept spinning, like it hadn't noticed my collapse. Part of me, the stubborn, bruised part that still hadn't learned, kept waiting for Rachel to call, to text, to show up at the apartment, crying, saying it had all been a mistake. But my phone stayed silent. My front door stayed closed. The truth hit me slower than it should have. She didn't regret it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Rachel had already rewritten our story. In her mind, she was the hero who escaped an empty marriage for true love. I was just a forgotten character in her origin story, a stepping stone she didn't even bother to wipe her shoes on. I wanted to scream. Instead, I bought a coffee from a cart vendor and sat there until the streetlights flickered on, thinking about everything I'd given away without a fight. The next morning, I got the email. It was from Rachel's lawyer. Some dry, clinical words about final property distribution, followed by a polite request for me to sign a mutual non-disparagement agreement. Basically, a fancy way of saying, don't talk badly about her. Pretend everything was mutual and kind. The attached payment offer was laughable. A few $1,000s, like a tip for good behavior. Like hush money for a man too broken to argue. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could almost hear Rachel's voice behind those typed words. Soft, pleading, patronizing. Be mature about this. Let's not make it ugly. For a moment, the old me considered it. Signing. Letting it all fade away quietly. Taking the coward's exit. But then I thought about all the nights I spent waiting for her to come home. All the times I sat alone at dinner tables, making excuses for why she wasn't there. All the lies she fed me while smiling sweetly. All the casual cruelty, disguised as destiny, when she abandoned me for Kyle. I opened a new document. Wrote 2 words. Declined. Respectfully. Attached it. Hit send. And it was like cutting the last thread tethering me to her world. Later that night, I packed up everything she had ever given me. The anniversary gifts, the love notes, the framed photos she insisted we display, and dumped it all in a box. I didn't burn it. I didn't smash it. I just placed it neatly by the dumpster behind my apartment, like leaving offerings at a grave that nobody visited anymore. I stood there for a long time, staring at the box, waiting to feel angry, waiting to feel free. But all I felt was hollow. Rachel hadn't just left me for Kyle. She had stripped me of my history, my meaning, my role in her life. I wasn't her mistake. I was her ghost. And somehow, that hurt worse than anything else. Weeks passed, but time didn't heal anything. It just dulled the edges until everything hurt in a different, quieter way. I went to work. I paid my bills. I pretended to live. But inside, it was like walking through the ashes of a house you built with your own hands, knowing it would never be whole again. Rachel didn't reach out. Not once. No, how are you? No, do you need anything? Not even a lazy apology to patch over the wreckage. Eliza texted once or twice, short things like, hope you're okay, or mom's really busy right now. And somehow that made it worse. Knowing my daughter, the one person I thought would understand, was already slipping out of my orbit like a star dying in the distance. One rainy Thursday, I found myself driving past our old neighborhood. I told myself it was an accident, wrong turn, muscle memory, whatever excuse helped me sleep at night. But deep down, I knew I needed to see it. Needed proof that life had moved on without me. The house looked almost the same. Same white fence, same blue shutters. But there was a new car in the driveway, Kyle's. And 2 wine glasses on the porch railing, half full, forgotten, like careless footprints. I sat in my car across the street, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white, and tried not to vomit. I watched Rachel step outside a few minutes later, laughing at something Kyle said. She looked radiant, not weighed down by guilt, not haunted by what she'd done. Free, like I had never existed. I don't remember leaving. I just know I ended up back in my apartment, standing in the dark kitchen, soaking wet from the rain, feeling like a ghost inside my own body. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old photo albums Rachel had insisted we make during our early years together. Thick, leather-bound lies. Page after page of smiling faces, vacations, birthday parties, holidays. A whole history built on promises she burned without blinking. And that's when it hit me, with a force I almost couldn't survive. The memories weren't real anymore. They weren't safe. They were poisoned. Every smile she gave me back then was a lie retroactively. Every hug, every whispered, I love you. Every plan for the future, all of it twisted into mockery by what she chose. I couldn't even hold on to the past without it stabbing me in the chest. I slammed the albums shut, shoved them into the back of the closet where they belonged, buried among things too painful to throw away but too toxic to look at again. And in that silence, in that tiny, empty apartment, I finally understood something that most people never admit out loud. It wasn't just Rachel who left me. It was the life I thought I was living. It was the future I thought I was building. It was the man I thought I was. All of it gone. The only thing left was a hollow, breathing shell sitting in the dark, trying to remember what it felt like to matter. It had been exactly 73 days since Rachel last spoke to me. I knew because I counted. Pathetic, maybe. But when your life is stripped down to empty hours and forgotten routines, you count what you can. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just as I was heating a can of soup I didn't even want. The number flashing on the screen was hers. My heart jolted so hard I nearly dropped the pot. I wiped my hands nervously on my jeans, took a shaky breath, and answered. Hello. My voice cracked embarrassingly on the second syllable. There was a pause. Then Rachel's voice, calm, syrupy, fake, filled the line. Hey, Darren. Hope you're doing well. Darren. Not honey, not babe, not even hey you. Just Darren, like I was some acquaintance she barely remembered from high school. I swallowed hard. What do you want? She gave a small laugh, the kind people use when they're trying to make you feel silly for being hurt. I just thought you should know. Kyle and I are getting married next month. We're keeping it small, just family. Eliza's going to be my maid of honor. My chest tightened painfully, but I forced myself to stay silent. Rachel mistook it for permission and barreled on. I know it's probably awkward for you, but it would really mean a lot if you didn't make things difficult for Eliza. She needs to see that we can all be happy for each other, you know? Happy. Happy. The word echoed in my skull like a bad joke. She was asking me to smile while she married the man she betrayed me with. She wanted me to sit quietly and applaud the wreckage of my own life being decorated with flowers and cake. I felt something inside me fracture, not a dramatic shattering, but a quiet, irreversible break. Like a rope snapping deep in a well where no one could hear it. I almost said something cruel. Almost spit venom down the line. But what was the point? Words wouldn't hurt her the way silence could. So I just said, "Thanks for letting me know," and hung up without waiting for a reply. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. I didn't pick it up. I just stared out the grimy window, watching a stray dog limp across the parking lot, thinking that maybe I understood him better than any human being now. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of every choice I didn't make. I could have fought harder. I could have screamed louder. I could have burned everything down around her. But I didn't. I let her go because somewhere deep down, I knew the truth. You can't lose something that chose to leave you. You can only free yourself from pretending it ever loved you in the first place. And when Rachel's perfect new world started to crack, when the lies she built her destiny on began to rot from the inside, I would still be here. Not waiting, not hoping, not even caring, just surviving. Because sometimes survival is the only revenge left for people like me. Spring crept back into the city slowly, almost like it was afraid it wouldn't be welcome. The trees outside my apartment started to bloom again, thin, fragile blossoms stretching bravely toward the pale sun. I found myself watching them one morning, coffee in hand, realizing I had gone an entire week without thinking about Rachel once. Not in anger, not in sadness, not at all. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. It was dozens of tiny moments stacked on top of each other, choosing not to answer calls I knew would hurt me, saying no to invitations that felt more like obligations, waking up each morning and deciding, just for today, to exist. I sold the last reminders of my old life, the ring, the watch she gave me for our 10th anniversary, the stupid souvenir mugs from our road trips. I used the money to buy a battered second-hand guitar and signed up for lessons at a dusty little music shop downtown. I wasn't good at it. My fingers fumbled the chords, my timing was all over the place, and my teacher, a patient old guy named Marvin, had the perpetual expression of a man trying not to laugh. But for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to be perfect. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I was just living. One Saturday afternoon, while struggling through a terrible version of Stand By Me, I looked up and saw a woman standing at the door of the shop, smiling politely. She wasn't stunning or dramatic like Rachel had always tried to be. She was real, messy hair, chipped nail polish, worn-out sneakers. And when our eyes met, she didn't look at me like I was broken. She just looked at me. Her name was Claire. We ended up talking for an hour over bad coffee in the shop's tiny kitchen, laughing about everything and nothing. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. It felt like a new page instead of a continuation of a story that had already ended. Over time, I realized something important. Rachel had been my whole world because I had made her my whole world. I had built my identity around her approval, her moods, her affection. And when she left, she didn't just break my heart, she left a void where I was supposed to be. But that void wasn't permanent. It wasn't a grave. It was a garden, waiting to be planted again. And slowly, clumsily, beautifully, I was planting it. Rachel married Kyle that summer. I didn't attend. I didn't send a card. I didn't even think about them on their wedding day. Because by then, I was busy learning a new song, planning a weekend trip with Claire, laughing, breathing, living. In the end, Rachel didn't destroy me. She freed me. And maybe, just maybe, that knock at the door all those months ago wasn't fate breaking me. Maybe it was fate giving me a second chance.